Welcome, everyone. I will call to order the April 20, 2023 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Business Meeting. Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today. Clerk to the Board, Shannon Bays. Assistant County Counsel, Nate Boderman. Commissioner Schrader is out of the office today. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner West.
Present.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced in this business meeting. We welcome your comments and in your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Gary, can you introduce the first item, please?
Yes, Chair Smith. The first item is a presentation today. It is an elections update from our Clackamas County Clerk, Catherine McMullen, with Ann Burke-Jones, Elections Manager. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Clackamas County residents. It's great to be able to speak to you again. Usually it's not so soon. As you know, we had a March election, and then we're rolling right into our May 16th special district election. I wanted to give Ann Burke-Jones a chance to go over the highlights of our March 14th election. It was quite a success, and some of the measurements that we used to determine that success.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Smith, members of the Commission. My name is Ann Burke-Jones. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the Elections Manager here in Clackamas County. And just to go over some of those metrics that Clerk McMullen mentioned, that we measure success for election administration. For the March election, we conducted 4 public logic and accuracy certification tests of our tally system. We sent out ballots to all City of Westland voters. It was just over 20,000 eligible voters for this election. And our turnout ended up at 26%, which is pretty high for one of these special local elections. A direct comparison would have been the special election that was held in August of last year. The turnout for that election was only 17%. Oh, wow. So to go up to 26, it was pretty exciting. We were happy for it for our staff. I don't know if you remember, but actually, because of the calendar, last time we were here was right after we had mailed those ballots out, and we got hit with the snowstorm. And so we actually had the post office, they ended up delaying those ballot deliveries to voters by only 1 day, even though that storm had hit. And so seeing that high turnout in response was a great response, a great showing of our partnership with USPS helping to carry out that service. Another metric that we use is the number of ballots that are accepted and challenged for signature issues. For this election, it was only 14 ballots that we were unable to accept due to signature issues. That was 0.27% of those ballots. So it was a very clean election. We were able to validate almost every single ballot that came in and get them counted for those voters. We posted unofficial results right at 8 o'clock on election night. We got those initial results reported on our website and also on the Secretary of State's website. We updated those results again on election night before going home, and then 5 more times before we certified that election on April 6th, which was 4 days earlier than the statutory deadline. So my staff did a great job getting everything reconciled and audited so we could wrap up early.
And I apologize to interrupt. Do you want us to show the slide deck? It's not on yet.
Yes, that
would be helpful.
I'm sorry. We'll turn it on now for the public and the staff. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
I appreciate that.
That will help highlight some of these numbers.
We're on slide number 3.
So as I said, we've been wrapping up the final reports for the March election, and some of our final metrics are the election cost per eligible voter. For this election, we were at $1.25 per voter. These costs include all costs incurred by our county elections office in the business of conducting the election. So it's printing, envelopes, personnel, postage, equipment maintenance services, everything that's related to conducting the election. And so, yeah, $1.25 per voter was what we ended up with March, which is a little bit below average where we're at. So more efficient, a cheaper election. We strive to be good stewards of our public funds because we know that not just is this coming from general funds, but these get billed out to these local jurisdictions. So it's really important for us to be able to measure the costs so that we can provide accurate quotes when jurisdictions are asking us how much elections cost. We track those. Another metric we use to track efficiency is the amount of personnel costs per ballots that we process. And so for the March election, our total was $528 for personnel costs for every 1,000 ballots that we were able to process. So it's a measurement of our efficiency with the ballots being returned, how much labor it's costing us to get through these ballots. This is also a little bit, it was more efficient than the November 22 election. That one came in at $734 per 1,000 ballots cast. So these are metrics we'll continue to track and use to guide, to measure our efficiency and how we're doing with managing the public funds and the election administration.
Have you finished?
Not quite yet. We're going to move on to the May special district election. So now we're looking at the election that's before us. As many of you received a voter's pamphlet in the mail probably yesterday, and others will be receiving it through the week. And that voter's pamphlet we timed to come out before the voter registration deadline for this election because there is a page that's a voter registration card. So voters or new residents to Clackamas County and to Oregon can actually register to vote as they're aware this election is happening. They may move to Clackamas County and go, oh, there's an election, I need to register to vote, and they'll be able to register in time for this election. And as you might be aware, this is a great election to have. It's special districts, so every voter is going to get a ballot based on what special districts they live in. So fire, water, school, and other special districts. And so we have just under 312 active registered voters. 312,000 active registered voters here in Clackamas County right now. And we're continuously updating our voter rolls so that we have their correct address, whether or not they're still in Clackamas County. Because where you live determines what measures and districts are on your ballot. We're focusing on communicating out important dates to county residents in a few different ways, from the voter's pamphlet to the press release that we worked on that came out this morning with PGA, and then also through social media and other information. So the voter's pamphlet includes things like statements from candidates, if they choose to include a statement, important voter information like where our official 25 official ballot drop sites are, and other information like that. So everyone is ready to vote. So the voters registration deadline is actually next Tuesday, April 25th, and our office is going to be open until 7 o'clock that evening, so we have extended hours, so if you're working or a student, you can come in afterwards and get registered to vote or get some help if you need it. And then ballots are going to go out that exact next day. And myself and other election staff this week have been at the mail house overseeing the ballot insertion, so getting all those ballots ready to be mailed next week. So if you go to the next slide, which is slide 5, you can see a picture of what that ballot package looks like. So ballots are going to be mailed out on April 26th. And by May 4th, all voters should have received their ballots. If you haven't received your ballot by May 4th, we ask that you reach out to us so we can get you a replacement, update your address, whatever we need to do to get you a ballot. We've updated our outer envelope. We're including the election date on the outside of each one. So when you receive that mail, you can see, even before opening it, when that ballot is due back. And then we've also updated the ballot envelope itself with using the branding guide, using our colors and our current logo, so that you can see with that official election mail stamp and the county colors that this is official election mail coming from Clackamas County. That way it doesn't look like a phone bill. It looks like something a little bit more important. I'm excited about that personally, about
I am
having
too.
that
That's
come
a
out.
great looking envelope with the date on the front. Wow, good idea.
Yeah, so if you go to the next slide, Election Day is May 16th. By statute, we'll be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. And your ballot, return it with either a valid postmark or to an official ballot drop site by 8 p.m. so that we can be sure to count it. Election night results are going to be posted starting at 8 p.m. and then again by 11:30 p.m. on election night.
Okay.
And then we have a full schedule of our, when we're going to be posting results on our website already, as well as an observation schedule. So that shows when we're going to be processing ballots. So anytime that we're processing ballots, we're open to the public for observations. We welcome the public in really at any time during that, as well as for the public tests. And then the final results are going to be certified on June 12th, on or before. That's the statutory deadline for that. So if you go to slide 7, last time I was here, I talked about what my feelings were and the core principles of election integrity for me as a county clerk. And one of those was that every eligible voter has the resources they need to vote easily and without barriers. And that's also something that ties into equity and inclusion. Knowing what every eligible voter needs, what resources are necessary so that they can be a successful voter. And so we've been reviewing what some of those additional resources are for voters with disabilities or voters who speak a first language other than English, and have updated some of our services. We now have on-demand video remote interpretation that's available in multiple languages, including American Sign Language, ASL, so that if someone who is deaf or hearing impaired, they can come in and they can actually see someone communicate with them, and we can communicate more effectively. We've hired a bilingual election specialist. So she's been on staff for 2 weeks, and she speaks Spanish and English. And so now we have that resource immediately available for our voters and community that speaks Spanish. And we're reviewing our services available for voters with disabilities. Some of you might be familiar with something called an alternative format ballot. And what that is a way to go online, go to the Secretary of State's website, and see your ballot on the screen. And then if you have a disability, you can either have the ballot read to you, you can make it really big, you can vote that ballot, print it out, put it in your ballot return envelope, and then have your signature verified that way. So if you're a voter with a disability, you can use the same assistive technology used in every other part of your everyday life to then also vote. And that's a great service that's available at the state level that we make sure that voters know about. And it also encourages independent voting. So let's say you're have vision impaired or you're blind, then you can actually have the ballot read to you. You can still vote with confidentiality, but you don't have to have someone else reading the ballot to you. You can vote independently. And I think it's really important that we use that as part of our election integrity to hold up those principles that every eligible voter is able to vote, and that's the universal outcome that we're working towards in our office. I want to leave time for questions. Looking forward to, again, voter registration deadline is Tuesday, and then ballots mail out on Wednesday, so voters should be looking for their ballots in the mail as early as Thursday, Friday, Saturday of this next week.
Well, thank you for the improvements you've made and the technology upgrades. I know the vision impaired feature is really important. And, my father is also very vision impaired, and he could use that well. So we're dealing with those issues in my life. That's very important. Going back to the March election, it was a special election for the city of West Lynn, correct? And they paid for the costs, correct?
Yeah, we're going to be sending them the bill at the end of this week.
But they have agreed to do that? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. We have several commissioners in the queue. Commissioner West, you're up.
Great job on the March election, the special election, and it was nice to have an election that was really smooth. I know that me and you did not experience that when we were just on the ballot, so I was really pleased with the accolades that we also got in your office got, I believe, from other counties with how quickly you were able to be timely in your reporting, outpacing in an effective and efficient way than other counties in the state. So good job with that. That helps, I think, bring confidence and a reassurance that things are being run professionally and ethically in a way that everybody can get behind. So thank you for that. I know I appreciate it. I have a question. I know that there is a large, and I believe growing Slavic community within Clackamas County specifically as we look at different populations that every county probably has a little bit different kind of population makeup, right? Do we have, it's my understanding that traditionally they're not a large voting block and they don't vote for a number of reasons, but we're seeing some of that change within that community. Are there resources for the Slavic community to be able to easily access the ballots? Because many of them are here and can vote and they're learning about our process, or they're new citizens, but English isn't their first language.
Yeah, definitely. I have connections with Slavic Vote, which is a nonprofit that's nonpartisan, helping to engage Slavic voters in voting in the Portland metro area. We work with the Secretary of State to have the informational parts of our voters pamphlet translated into multiple languages, and that includes Russian and Ukrainian. And then with the video remote interpretation service that we've started, Russian, Ukrainian, Romanian, the other languages we can bring those right up within 2, 3, 5 minutes and have someone on screen like a Zoom call that speaks the language of the voter and then can communicate most effectively that way.
Is that a new service for Clackamas County?
It isn't, but it's something that's new in the clerk's office because we have an existing contract with IRCO, which is the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, as a county. And so we worked within that contract to set that up then in my offices, actually all of them. So we're doing wedding license questions, passport questions in multiple languages now as needed.
Thank you, fantastic.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you, Catherine and Ann, for that informative briefing. Appreciate it. Last year, we had a not-so-small problem with printing ballots. Can you tell us what you're doing this year to ensure that that process works without a glitch?
Of course, yeah. So we have quality control measures in place, from physically being at the mail house and inspecting that, yes, the ballot that's being inserted is printed correctly. It's the right ballot style for that voter. So that's something that's happening ongoing through this week. That's part of the normal quality control. As you know, we're not using the same vendor that we had the problems with in May of 2022. And we also have been working closely with finance to do an RFP for ballot printing. So that RFP closed April 11th, and we're in the process of reviewing the vendors that submitted a proposal so that we can select one and have one in place for the November election, November of 2023 this year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, good news on the March election. That's great to hear. I appreciate actually and find it interesting, the metric of the $1.25 per eligible voter, which if math is correct, at 25% or 6% turnout, that's about $5 per voter. I'd love to see those stats in the coming elections, actually. So obviously with scale, that cost comes down, I would assume, for a larger populated area. So I'd love to see that number. Hopefully that might encourage people actually to actually vote and see their public dollars go to use by actually using it. So that might be an incentive.
No, I agree with you. If I may clarify, Commissioner, eligible voter means everyone that's eligible to vote in that election. So for Westland, it's $1.25 for each voter, so 20,000 voters.
Right.
So it wouldn't be $5 necessarily, but it's $5 per voter voted. But
That's
yeah,
what I meant. Yeah,
the
that's what I
sooner
meant.
the more people that vote, the less each ballot, each
right.
vote is going to
Yeah,
cost.
I think I
in terms of-
understood it. And
Okay.
I understood that, so appreciate that. So, but I think, again, if people aren't using it, let's say the turnout was 10%, then the cost per voter who voted would be much higher. So that's my point.
Very true.
The other thing, a question I had, I brought this up before, were you able to fully staff well, it's probably pretty easy in West Lynn, to staff all the mailboxes, or the ballot boxes, to make sure that there was no one putting a ballot in at 8:01 or 8:02 p.m.?
Yeah, and you asked that question, and I totally skipped over my last slide. But it was about getting vote ready for May, and we are still recruiting for temporary election workers. We are still working on recruiting another 20. 80 was our goal, so we're getting really close. And we had 3 official ballot drop sites open for the March election, so that was very easy to staff. We have almost all of our drivers in place for the May election. And one of the new updates is that we are actually opening up our hiring to high school students. We're able to hire 16 16 and 17-year-olds to come work in the office. They won't be driving, but they'll be able to come work in the office and get a hands-on experience with democracy, working in a multi-generational environment, and actually earn some money as well. And so that's something that just happened this week, and we're going to be working with schools, youth organizations to push that out. So even before someone is voting, they may be eligible to register to vote, but they won't be yet eligible to vote. They'll be able to have work in that and become lifelong voters and involved civically. So yeah, we are almost at our goal for hiring for May. I don't see any issues with reaching that.
Right. The other thing I mentioned along those same lines was what does it take to actually get someone qualified to be out on site, right? I used the word deputized last time. I'm sure that's probably not the right word, but what does it take? What's the requirements for someone to be authorized to be at the ballot box on behalf of elections?
Yeah, so you're right, they're sworn election workers, and we work through a third-party vendor to hire them as temporary workers. So they're hired by the temporary agency, and whenever they apply, we get a background check. So if they have any driving issues, then they wouldn't be a driver. And then the teams are 2 people from 2 different parties, and so we know what party they're registered with, and they get training on how to close the drop box on time, how to not accept ballots that have been turned in after 8 o'clock, know where the end of a line is, if there's, for example, there's a line of cars. So yeah, some basic training, applying with our office, doing a background check, and then getting sworn as an election worker.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner West?
Because I have you in front of me, I'm going to ask a question that was asked to me and I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I know we're a little bit out from our next election beyond May, but what is the qualifications or the professional qualifications for a unique position like sheriff? So can anybody just put their name on the ballot, or do they have to qualify and pass certification to actually be a sworn officer?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
So that's a good question. Sheriff is one of the positions, unlike clerk, that doesn't have some very basic requirements. There is an additional requirement. It is on our website, and I wouldn't want to make that up right this moment, but I can email you where that's located on our website,
Okay.
what the qualifications are for the county sheriff.
Share that out.
Yeah, because
Thank you.
the clerk requirements is that you're 18, you're registered to vote, and that you've lived in the county for a year, which is much different than the sheriff or the DA, for example, that require other certifications.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. Well, thank you for this enlightening briefing that you brought for us. You've made some good changes. We like them. We look forward to the elections on May 16th, and go forth and be prosperous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Gary, what's up next?
Next is a previously approved land use item. It is adoption of a board order approving previously approved zone change application Z0542-22-Z. Nate Boderman, Assistant County Counsel, will present.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, everyone. The item this morning is to adopt an order related to a proposed change to the county's zoning map on property located near 14412 South Caris Road. Specifically, this order will include the removal of a historic landmark overlay zone on the subject property. So the county's Historic Review Board did conduct a public hearing on this matter on March 9th, 2023, and voted unanimously at that time to recommend that this board approve the amendment proposed. This board then held a public meeting on March 22nd, just a few weeks ago, to consider the application and the recommendation by the Historic Review Board. And at that meeting, this board voted 3-1 in favor of approving the application as recommended by the Historic Review Board and staff. This board then directed staff to prepare findings and to draft an order finalizing that decision. So the order before you today will implement the amendment to the zoning map that I just described. Planning staff has included findings to be attached to the order supporting this decision. So it's certainly staff's recommendation that you adopt the order. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, do we have any questions on this? We have taken previous action. Is there any points of clarification on what we're doing today? This was a request sent to us by the Canby School District to move a historic building off of their property. As the governing body of Clackamas County, we must approve the removal of the historic overlay. And I understand from previous testimony there's some exciting opportunities for this building when moved, and so our historical folks in the county have done some very good work on trying to find a home for this old school. Hearing no further comments, Shannon, would you please call a vote?
Oh, we need a motion.
I need a motion. Commissioner
I-
Scholl.
Yeah. I move we approve the board order related to zone change application Z0542-22-Z as previously approved at the March 22, 2023 land use hearing. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll second
Commissioner
it.
Scholl
I know
has,
there's like pause. There's a second.
yeah, Commissioner Scholl has moved we approve board order relating to zone change application Z0542-22-Z as previously approved at the March 22nd, 2023 land use hearing and seconded by Commissioner West. Any further discussions?
Just, Chair, just
Yes.
grateful that the historic schoolhouse will not become homeless.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now we can call for the vote. Thank you, Shannon.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next is the consent agenda. It is a long one. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda?
Approval of previous business meeting minutes from the Assessor's Office. Approval of a resolution with the State of Oregon for the Assessor's County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Grant application for fiscal year 2023-2024. Total value is approximately $1.25 million of the revenue for the Assessor's Office for July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. Funding through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. From the Sheriff's Office, approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding of a subrecipient agreement with Oregon Health Sciences University for implementing system-level diversion strategies. Amendment value is $12,095. Grant value is increased to $292,058 for 3 years. Funding through the Comprehensive Opioid Abuse Site-Based Program Grant through the United States Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved. Finance, adoption of a board order authorizing a purchase order to purchase 3 750-kilowatt generators and associated components through a cooperative contract with Cummins, Inc. Purchase order value is $916,624.45. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Juvenile, approval to apply for a re-engagement opportunity grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a mentoring program. Grant value is $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Solutions Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a restorative community service program. Grant value is $120,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Promise Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for school-based screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment services program. Grant value is $220,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Solutions Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center Prevention Program. Grant value is $120,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Approval to apply for a Future Ready Youth Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a Work Crew Community Service Program. Grant value is $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Transportation and Development, approval of Amendment Number 2 of the Supplemental Program Project Agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation for the Jennings Avenue, Oregon 99E to Oatfield Road project. Total amendment is $1,258,889.47 for a total project estimate of $6,183,390.81. Funding through the Federal Surface Transportation Program, Surface Transportation Block Grant Funds, and county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval of the 2023 tax foreclosed property disposition declaration of surplus, no fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Approval of a contract with Coral Construction Company for Dryland Road Guardrail Improvement Project. Total contract value is $377,777. Funding through the county road fund, no county general funds are involved. Approval of a contract with Capital Asset and Pavement Services, Inc. for inspection and evaluation of Clackamas County roads. Total contract value is $272,316. Funding through the county road fund, no county general funds are involved. Approval of a contract with Consor North America, Inc. for the Johnson Creek Boulevard 79th to ECM Improvements Project. Total contract value is $453,006. Oh, not 6 cents. $453,006. Funding is through county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of Amendment Number 4, increasing funding and duration of a personal services contract with MV Public Transportation, Inc. for Mount Hood Express Daily Operation Service. Amendment value is $1,225,600 for 1.3 years. Agreement value is increased to $3,379,703.08 for 4 years. Funding is through Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration, and statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval of federal subrecipient grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for Emergency Food and Shelter Program. Agreement value is $60,525 for 10 months. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. No county general funds are involved. Approval of federal subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for Emergency Food and Shelter Program. Agreement value is $60,525 for 10 months. Funding is through U.S. Department of Homeland Security. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding to a subrecipient grant agreement with Foothills Community Church on behalf of its Malala Adult Community Center for services to older adults. Amendment value is $15,790 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $365,876 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding to a subrecipient grant agreement with Friends of Canby Adult Center, Incorporated for services to older adults. Amendment value is $17,710 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $572,450 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding to a subrecipient grant agreement with the City of Oregon City on behalf of its Pioneer Community Center for services to older adults. Amendment value is $9,500 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $372,318 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding to a subrecipient grant agreement with Hoodland Senior Center for services to older adults. Amendment value is $20,455 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $204,803 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 3, increasing funding to a subrecipient grant agreement with North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District on behalf of its Milwaukee Center for services to older adults. Amendment value is $14,355 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $903,992 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 12, adjusting fiscal year 2023 funding and updating program language to revenue agreement, intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority for financing of public health services. Amendment value is $223,252 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $16,638,964.52 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 13, adjusting fiscal year 2023 funding and updating program language to a revenue intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority for financing of public health services. Amendment value is $440,505.62 for 1 year. Agreement value is increased to $17,079,470.14 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Approval of Amendment Number 1, increasing funding and extending the duration of the personal services contract with MTR Western LLC for the operation of the Last Mile Shuttle Services. Amendment value is $1,013,864.14 for 1 year. Contract value increased to $1,956,368.14 for 3 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval to apply for grant funds from Kaiser Permanente to establish a medical respite program. Total grant value is up to $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through Kaiser Permanente. No county general funds are involved. That's the end of my list.
Bravo, Shannon. Very good. Thank you for that
you.
long consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Commissioner West has moved approval of the consent agenda, and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please take the poll.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Water Environment Services Board.
This is the consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda?
Approval of a grant application to Metro's Nature in Neighborhoods Capital Grant Program for construction of the Three Creeks Water Quality Project. Grant value is $600,000. Funding is through Metro. No county general funds are involved.
Does any commissioner wish to remove this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Director West has moved for approval of the consent agenda, and Director Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the poll?
Director Savas?
Aye.
Director Scholl?
Aye.
Director West?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Gary?
Chair, would you now please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board?
I will adjourn as a Water Environment Services Board and convene as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board.
This is the consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda?
Approval of Amendment Number 3, adding funding to a subrecipient grant agreement from Clackamas County for ongoing delivery of senior services at the Milwaukee Center. Amendment value is $14,355. Grant value is increased to $903,992 for 2 years. Funding is through the state and federal grant funds. No county general funds are involved.
Chair, I move to approve, sorry.
That's all right. Nobody wishes, I assume
Bring it
nobody
anything.
wants to remove this. Go ahead, Commissioner
Go right
West.
along. Chair,
Yeah.
can we please approve the consent agenda as read?
You bet.
Second.
Commissioner West has moved for approval of the consent agenda, and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Shannon, please take the poll.
Director Scholl?
Aye.
Director Savas?
Aye.
Director West?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. I will now adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and convene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary, what's next?
Next is public communication.
All right. This portion of the agenda is limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the meeting for public testimony and take in-person testimony first. Please fill out a blue card if anybody is interested, and we will continue with the public testimony. I have some cards now. Up first is Rick Dodge. Please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
I should be going after my friend and neighbor,
Do you want to
Misty.
switch up?
Yeah, can we?
Yes.
Okay.
So would that be Misty Fetlog? Did I say that right? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, come on up.
Okay. The first thing that I want to say is thank you to you for changing your vote on the turnkey project. I think that was probably difficult and brave. Second, I want to welcome Mr. West. Third, I want to thank you again for going to visit Adult and Teen Challenge and listen, at least be open to listening to their organization, how it works. If any of you are unfamiliar with it, I brought one of these. You may have got them and passed them out. My daughter just so happens to be their event coordinator, and it's a recent position for her, and she just keeps raving about how fantastic the organization is. I shared with Tootie earlier a story about I was on the ski bus, which thank you for the funding for that. I do it every week. I have all my friends going. It's fantastic. In January, I got on the ski bus, and it just so happened that I was sitting next to a man who coincidentally told me that he was a graduate of Teen Challenge a number of years ago. And when I asked him how that experience was for him, because I was really excited about that because of her new job, he told me this: best year of my life. That was hands down. And his name is Ryan. I've skied with him 3 extra times now, and he is 8 years clean and sober now. Anyway, so thank you for that. The last thing is, I know when I was here last, Mr. Scholl, you mentioned the county was looking at an RV model for potential homeless housing, whatever. Anyway, with that said, this happened 3 weeks ago. You may or may not have seen it on the news. I didn't, but my husband. Anyway, my husband is a utility contractor, and he contracts from Comcast, and he was called out on this damage. And, 16 hours later, 3 o'clock in the morning, he comes home and proceeds to tell me the story. And this is certainly not the first incident like this. I'm sure you're aware. His concern or statement, and this is kind of why I'm here, is how many times will this be allowed to happen before telecommunications companies want to hold someone accountable for the cost? This is a tremendous amount of cost. You can see in the photo that it takes out, the telecommunication lines are on fire for downtown. This was on the west end of the Ross Island Bridge, Corbett Street. Again, 3 weeks ago. This incident took out, as far as Comcast goes, 130,000 residential customers for a day and a half. Also, thousands of businesses were shut down, one of which I shared this story with a client of mine, and she said, oh yeah, that's the day my husband's law firm had to shut down and go home downtown. And while this is in Multnomah County, it's not here, it's certainly a concern. Because you can see from the photo that the top of the RV, which has propane tanks, generally not in great condition, may or may not be smoking in it. I don't know why, but this does seem to be happening.
Thank you very much, and your time is
So,
up.
Yeah,
Yes, and so for the record, you
for
have...
whatever that's worth.
Well, for the record, you have shown a picture of an RV on fire. I assumed it was abandoned, and it is in Portland, Oregon, correct?
Actually, there was 3 people living in it.
Okay, right. Thank you for sharing that. Any commissioner wishes to comment on that? Just for the record, we have an abandoned RV program in Clackamas County
Yes.
that we take care of abandoned RVs.
Yes.
However, if somebody is living in them on the street, that poses a very different legal problem for us.
Right.
Any other commissioner wish to comment? Commissioner West.
We share your concerns.
Yeah, I'm
Totally.
sure.
I think every one of us on this board never want to see that happen
Right.
in our county and in our local communities. As we address the housing crisis, we're trying to find creative ways to get people quickly and rapidly housed in a safe way that doesn't lead to that with safeguards around that, boundaries around that, regulations around how people live in their RVs potentially, while also not necessarily just homeless people, just people that need affordable housing, right? You can just,
Right.
I mean, you might be, just a person who had a family situation and you're not living in your home anymore, and maybe your spouse is no longer with you, and you just need a safe place to live in an RV that's in good condition on someone's property is a good solution to that person.
Absolutely.
Without being, something that looks like it's from the show The Breaking Bad, right? Like,
Right.
So I think we want to find that balance as our goal. As at least I can speak for myself, but I think we've all spoke to that on this dais. So trying to just be creative with like
Right.
what's given to us, why there's a lot of bad policy that's led to this housing situation we're dealing with.
Right. I know it's really complicated. I'm just pointing out one more reason why, maybe that RV model is a good idea. I don't know. It's concerning
So two
for
other
sure.
commissioners want to speak, Misty. Two other
okay.
commissioners would like to speak to this, and then I will follow up with a concluding statement that you might like. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you. Like I mentioned several times before, one of the potential safety off-the-street projects that Clackamas County's looked at is safety off-the-street parking for people who live in their cars to get them off the side of the road at night. The other one is a safety off-the-street RV park, so people don't have to park their RVs on the side of the road. Now, that is yet to be seen, that type of project. The other thing, too, like other commissioners have said, is that we have our own problem and program for removing abandoned RVs, as does Metro Rib Patrol. So it's a huge problem. But thanks for the reminder of the need for that RV and safety off-the-street parking for people living in their cars. It's something we need to work on. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to say that my takeaway from the picture is that we all need to be mindful that RVs are not designed for permanent housing. The standards in which they are built are substantially lower than that of even mobile homes, which are the ones that, trailer parks that are in typical trailer parks. A very good friend of mine was in the business of repairing RVs, motorhomes, campers, trailers, all of that. I'm owner of one, was an owner of one. They require a high amount of maintenance. They are terribly inefficient when it comes to heating, and they break often. And there's no way, for example, to know exactly where an RV is to make sure that it's up to standards, like CO2 detectors or carbon monoxide detectors or, any of the other things that can be toxic or dangerous to people. So they are somewhat of a risk when they become permanent housing, so to speak, for people to live in and day out. They're just not designed for that. But just be mindful that also, they have to have a vehicle attached to them to be, whether it's a motorhome, obviously they have a drivetrain and a way, but if it's a camper, it needs to have a vehicle to move it around, and so forth. So, yeah, it's not uncommon. And by the way, there's not a lot of safety exits out of those things. So sometimes a fire can consume people and unfortunately lose their lives. It's much harder to get out of one of those than it is a home.
Thank you. In the Oregon legislature, there's Senate Bill 1013 that passed the Senate, is in the House being considered today, that allows one RV to be parked on lands that was before illegal. And this came to me. A lady had a sister whose husband died. They lost the house, and she says, just come in your RV and just live on my property, be fine. Well, that was against the zoning standards, so I dropped a bill in the legislature to allow for that to happen. And each county is responsible for their own licensing on that and their own regulations, and so it's permissive. It's not a mandate, it's permissive. So if the counties choose to accept this, going forward, each county will put together, environmental standards, if you choose to do that, length of stay, if you choose to do that. So that will help immediately many people and for me, it was designed family members, okay? But you just can't discriminate and say family members only, okay? And so it's up to each property owner's choice of who they have doing that. And you can enter into rental agreements, and you can enter into inspections and so forth on that. So we could immediately alleviate 100 people who would be living in RVs in places on the street. There's a potential for that. So it's coming up in the House of Representatives soon.
Nice. Interesting.
Senate Bill 1013.
Interesting. You know, because you live in the country, as do I, that happens all the time. Whether they're supposed to do it or not, it does happen all the time.
This person was,
So nice.
was it a code enforcement because it was parked illegally and a neighbor turned them in. So I went down to our code department and said, well, we just need to change that. That's not right. And come to find out, it's a state land use law.
Ah,
So we had to change it at the legislature. So stuff is very complicated.
yes, it always is.
It always is.
It's funny. I thought, why am I going to do this? This kind of stuff pays my bills. These, telecommunication damages. So, but it's concerning for, all the other people involved. So.
Thank you, Misty, for coming forward.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we have 2 more cards. Anybody else who wishes to testify, please submit a card over here. Rick Dodge, you're up.
I don't know why I bring notes, I never use them, but I wanted to go now so that what I said just didn't become redundant like sometimes it is. This Northwest Eye on Politics, Coin TV, I think it's every Sunday. I happened to watch it this last time around, and Ken Boddy, I think, is the moderator. And they had a fellow on there who had 15 minutes of that show that had 28 years of drug and alcohol counseling. And you, Chair, were mentioned on it, and the project, the Quality In Project. I encourage you to take a look at that, because it was another take on what's going on with the homeless situation. Anyway, to summarize the take, he said that if money were the only way to solve the problem would be done, over with.
That's right.
And totally agreed that the Quality In was not something that was going to solve the problem. Nevertheless, throwing out some stats, and one of them, he's an intervention individual that works in that realm, and he said up to 90% of the people that are homeless have not even been approached or talked to about anything pertaining to their situation, whether they need help or anything like that. Now, when people come up with stats, I sometimes wonder where they get them. And it's like polls, they're going to ask 10 people out of 2,000, whatever. Anyway, Misty's daughter, because my wife and I, we see her once a month to get our ears lowered, as Dad used to say. And so through the years, it's been about 20. We've known her daughter and her situation for a long time. Her daughter had really, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, bad addiction problems. I used to be a churchgoer, and I don't much anymore because I don't want to go there. But I know the power of faith. And her daughter's, the outfit that she works for, I think it's called Teen Challenge, is exactly something that helped me out back in 1976. And so I would encourage, take a look at that Northwest Politics thing. It's very interesting. And a real quick question. I didn't want to, does the city of Milwaukee have the authority to ban all gas appliances in new construction? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, we've heard of that, Rick.
Okay.
We've heard of that.
Okay, I didn't want to throw a wrench into something that's even more important, but.
I think this commission has taken the position is we like gas appliances and electric and wood stoves and nuclear, by the way. Nate
Yep.
Boderman, do you have a comment on that? He does not. He's our county council.
Come on.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You bet. Up next, Les Poole.
Chair, if I-
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. and That
Oh,
is
and
that-
Ben, sorry.
that the example that Rick used here with teen challenge, was it teen or team?
Teen.
Teen challenge is just, yeah. Yeah. My point is this, is that there are programs out there that work.
Yep.
They don't all work well, but there's programs out there that work. We need to acknowledge that and be honest about that conversation. And wherever those programs work, of course, whether it's a hotel or it's a church or it is a building or a retired home or whatever it may be, that usually need a place to make them work. So, but they don't all work. So thank you.
Thank you. And I did not mean to overlook my commissioners. Commissioner West would like to address the last comments.
Rick, that great interview you saw was by Kevin Dahlgren with Ken Body, and Kevin Dahlgren's probably one of the most coherent, articulate voices in the entire West Coast on addressing the housing, homelessness, and addiction issue. He is often featured by all types of different media. He has been a drug and addiction counselor for almost 30 years. He does robust outreach that very few do, and he is correct that not in Clackamas County because we do things a little differently here. We do good outreach. We can always do better, but in the Portland area, he is correct. Very little effective outreach and knowing who's on our streets is done in an impactful way. I'm very impressed by Kevin Dahlgren and the work that he does, and it was fun to chat with him after he did the Ken Body interview, and you were right, it was pretty impressive.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nope. Les, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, as always. We could probably talk for the next 5 or 6 hours just on this subject, and I only have 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so I'll keep it brief. Looking at solutions to homelessness really require that we dig deeper, and I think that's what the county's trying to do. I commend any effort in that direction. And cooperation between private citizens, private individuals, different entities, between them and government is critical. And I know there are plenty of relationships already, but anything we can do to streamline and get more for the dollar we're spending is just common sense, and I would certainly endorse keeping that in our minds. One of the things we face, of course, is it's budget season, and I know that we're at a point where a draft budget is out or will be released pretty soon. There's a project next door, the courthouse, and that, it's necessary, but it seems like the amount of money that's going to that is astronomical. And obviously, to pay for that, we may be taking money from other places. So I just ask that we get some kind of a more solid feeling or solid numbers of how are we funding the courthouse? How much do we have from the state? How much might be bonded? And what is the final number on what the courthouse is going to cost? It's something we have to do, but it's also an elephant in the room financially. Moving on to my favorite subject, which of course is tolling, something I've been involved in since 2017. when under the guise or under the title of value pricing, tolling was introduced in HB 2017, the transportation bill. And to go back and look at it, one sees that in that bill got up to $8 billion at one point, and when it was passed, it was down to 5.5. The significance of that is that as the bill was reduced from that $8 billion, first thing that went away was funding for widening and improving 205 in the Stafford area. We were told that tolling might be a way to take care of that. And since that time, we've had this moving target and a lot of confusion over tolling. And I would just say that I'm very pleased at what I saw yesterday in the work session in terms of the county's response to the weak environmental analysis provided by ODOT. And one of my arguments that I heard yesterday here, and I'll make it publicly, is that an environmental impact statement should have been done rather than an analysis. And when you've got a federal project and federal money's involved, which I'm sure there's some in there, it usually triggers the need for an environmental impact statement. So kudos to the staff and to the commission for the efforts they're taking on tolling. And by all means, please go to Clackamas Live, folks. At the top of that Facebook page is a link to the petition that would require a public vote in 2024. Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you. Gary, do you have any comments?
Yes, we do have a county website on the replacement county courthouse that lists all the details anyone could want about the costs, how it's being funded. The approximate cost of the total replacement county courthouse is about $300 million, of which the state of Oregon is paying half. We already have $94 million in hand from the state. We're asking the state for an additional $61 million, to be approximately around $150 million from the state. The rest is being paid for by Clackamas County. The Board of County Commissioners determined to pay for it from general funds, existing property taxes, no new taxes, no new fees to the residents of the county. And to accommodate that, we're going to reduce or make room in the ongoing general fund expenses, approximately $15 million a year for 30 years, to pay the county's portion of that.
And the budget rollout will be then, and we don't talk about that until the normal allotted time according to budget law, and that is when?
The published budget for the published proposed budget for next fiscal year will be published around May 13th or May 14th, and then the Budget Committee meets the week of May 22nd, public meeting to discuss the proposed budget.
Thank you very much. Up next, Neil Walker. Thank you, Neil. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Neil Walker, and I'm grateful. I wanted to comment about the confusion on the causes of homelessness. Prior to the meeting, I Googled causes of homelessness in Clackamas County. I came up with a short excerpt that states that current research shows that simply it's a lack of housing that is the cause of homelessness, and that's on your website. Then I continued to look at the website, and there's a comment from Mr. Merkel of Here Together that states that Chairwoman Tootie is vying time to stall for more research on homelessness, and he thinks that transitional housing, addiction services, and housing is the answer. Well, I disagree. And I think Chairwoman Smith is doing an excellent job at digging to the bottom of causes of homelessness, as I had testified or made public comment on March 31st. In my opinion, if not fact, it's been unresolved childhood abuse issues. And I come with real street knowledge of watching my friends smoke meth down by the river in Corvallis. I also wanted to comment about the unresolved childhood abuse issue of being the main driver of homelessness. That's a component of abandonment and rejection that comes from that homelessness, or actually comes from that childhood experiences. Also learned helplessness. And again, Chairwoman Smith, thank you for your courage and your bravery to continue to look at the causes of homelessness, and you're starting to dig deeper and getting real into the causes of it. I also wanted to comment about the National Alliance for Mentally Ill and Teen Challenge. When I discuss with leaders of the National Alliance for the Mental Ill, Recovery Services, and Teen Challenge, the causes of homelessness or self-medication, they don't acknowledge the parenting styles that cause the traumatic experience, that causes the self-medication, that causes, so what I'm attempting to say is that language is used, like the National Alliance for Mental Ill Resources, Team Challenge, and other recovery services, essentially is that they would much rather focus on addiction, recovery, addictions, instead of the true nature of why people are homeless, unresolved childhood abuse issues, and they're self-medicating. Thank you, Chairwoman Smith, and thank you, Commissioners, for continuing to support Chairwoman Smith in her research and analytics on homelessness.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Chairwoman Smith. And Commissioner.
Is there anybody else in the room who wishes to testify that hasn't had the opportunity yet? Shannon, is there anyone online?
Thank you, Chair Smith. I have no registered participants today, but if you have not registered to testify and would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. I have no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. I will now close the public communication portion of this meeting and move on. Gary, what's next?
Next is County Administrator Update. That's me. I like to share good news about our county staff and our programs for you, commissioners, and the public. Today, I want to compliment our staff at the Law Library of Clackamas County. Yes, the county operates a law library as required by state law. Our Assistant Law Librarian, Bob Cooper, was thanked by two different people for his outstanding work. One person wrote in, Bob, thank you for going out of your way to secure the continuing legal education advanced elder law materials so that I could borrow it earlier. 10 stars for your thoughtfulness and helpfulness. And then someone else wrote on another matter, Bob, thank you so much. It worked. And it was regarding filing an objection in the court. You are appreciated more than you will ever know. Thank you. So we do have really talented law librarians that are available to anyone. This is open to the public and attorneys to use materials in our law library.
And where is the law library located for
It's
anybody?
currently in downtown Oregon City near the Clackamas County Courthouse. It will be located in the replacement county courthouse once that is built.
Okay, thank you.
Next, a resident of one of the county cities, Barlow, one of our smallest cities, wrote in about our Department of Transportation and Development staff regarding potholes. They wrote, there was a big pothole in front of my house that was so loud when trucks went over it. Thank you so much for fixing it. Also, the street sign for 2nd Street disappeared a while back, and I just noticed you replaced it. Nice. I had a great experience with the county when I first bought this house a few years ago, fixing and permitting an electrical violation that I inherited. The people in your office are excellent. Thank you for all you do. So this is regarding our roads crew, transportation maintenance crew, and our building codes team, all in transportation and development. So thank you very much to our outstanding staff. That's my update today, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great news to hear about our employees. Up next is Commissioner Communication. On the list, first is Commissioner West.
I don't have a lot this week. I'm going to maybe forecast a little bit in the next week. We spoke a lot about what we did this week already. We had a long session yesterday. We got a lot of good work done. Next week, just a heads up to the board, I'm going to bring back, hopefully on issues 4 creative, maybe 3 creative, 1 revisiting of something we've already talked about, issues on maybe trying to rapidly house people, especially those that are more economically displaced and are a little bit easier to house but get them affordable housing quickly. I have some ideas I'd like to parse out with all of you and to speak to the county about. They're a little bit innovative, they're a little bit different, but I think they're cost effective and might really be good solutions for us that allow people to stay in the communities they call home and not necessarily be asked to relocate to different places around the county to get transitional housing. So I'm excited by these ideas. Chair Smith already alluded to one of them today about Senate Bill 1013. Fantastic work on that, Chair. So I'm going to bring some of those things forward. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts. I know that when we all put our heads together and work together, we really do achieve really awesome things here in Clackamas County. I want to give everybody an update. Our resolution on addiction and homelessness and housing is kind of spreading like wildfire. It wasn't just a much to do about nothing statement like some resolutions are, but it's inspiring other local governments to speak to the issue that we all see. We know we're tired of saying the emperor has no clothes and not saying anything about it, and we're going to speak to the addiction, trauma, and other issues that our citizens are dealing with that are causing chronic and persistent homelessness. It's a multifaceted issue. That's not the only cause, and that's not what we're trying to say. But we're tired of resources not being allotted and given to those that do struggle with addiction and mental health issues, and we watch them persist in hopelessness, and that's not our way. And this resolution speaks to that. Happy Valley last week just passed that resolution. 9 other cities are considering passing it. It's on the docket for Marion County. Of their own accord, the Marion County commissioners called me, wanted a copy of it. It's on the docket. Yamhill has it on their docket on Fentanyl Awareness Day on, I believe it's May 10th, and they will be passing the resolution also as local governments come together to set a narrative and a worldview that will inform our actions and not the status quo that has failed most urban cities up and down the West Coast. And that's what leadership is sometimes setting the worldview and then taking action on top of it, because we don't just pass resolutions and do nothing in Clackamas County. Sometimes we pivot hard and get our thinking caps on and dig deeper and get a little grittier and figure out how to solve chronic and persistence problems. So I'm excited by that. Seeing the resolution kind of grow and other jurisdictions pick it up under Clackamas County's leadership. Next week, also, there's something I'm forgetting, but you guys will hear me speak again not too far from now. I didn't take any. I'm off script, Rick. If I have them, somewhere in these papers I have script, but I'm off script today. So I know. I have a habit of that, but I'm really excited by the things that we're doing here and some of the things we're trying to get accomplished. We have talked about at this board potentially like doing more public hearing and opportunities for the public of Clackamas County, because the legislature wants everybody just to shut up about tolling. They don't want to take any bills on any hearings. They don't want us to talk about tolling. Rep. McLean is basically putting a kibosh on allowing the people of Oregon and Clackamas County to be heard in Salem on the issue in tolling. And so they're just marching forward right over us. And we talked about doing some hearings. Commissioner Savas, you were at the Wilsonville one, the Charbonneau one. I think you told me 300 people. Brian Cosgrove, the city manager, on the phone yesterday told me it was 350. In 1 hour, many of those people didn't get a chance to speak. Nobody in that room supported tolling. Unfortunately, a few people that were a part of that did vote for it, but that's another topic for another time. But I think there's some interest with Greg Leo reached out and we chatted late last night, and maybe initially partnering with Charbonneau again because they have that space, including the county because they're really interested in what's happening with the EA, our efforts we're doing on a local level, the level of professionalism and strategic wherewithal we're bringing to address the tolling issue. And so I'm excited potentially about us maybe even partnering with Charbonneau again to maybe let them know what the county is doing, since we were not a major voice in that last meeting, but there's a lot more to say and more people want to have an opportunity to speak. So that's just an update from the conversation I started to have yesterday, just letting everybody know about it. I hope we move forward with those public hearings. I think there's a real opportunity there. And with that, I will look forward to chatting with you all next week as we continue to do the business of Clackamas County.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah. Well, I'll just build on Commissioner West's comment. Yeah, yes, indeed, I did attend Wilsonville, and there were over 300 people there. I heard 320, I heard 380, I heard all kinds of numbers, but it was a lot of people, and there was not enough time for everyone to speak. I appreciate you all entertaining my suggestion last week of maybe doing town halls and whatnot, and I talked to Chair Smith about that, and the more I thought about it, I thought perhaps maybe the best thing is for us to do a road show, right? And welcome, maybe partner with the city, partner with the local legislators to invite them to that event and to hear firsthand what's on our minds. I think there's some miscommunications that are taking place in Salem that are not really representative of maybe what the facts are. So don't know where that came from. I know our staff are working on that to try and clear the air. I think the documents and the public record pretty well supports our position and what we said, past and present. Last evening, I did go to Salem and joined three of our mayors and spoke to some of our legislators. And they host us, very grateful that they did that, listened to our concerns. I'm cautiously optimistic that something will happen, whether it's a pause or whether it's accommodating some of our requests. But I'm not gonna bet on it. I'm hoping that they pull through and they do that. But I think that people need to be aware that areas like where we are, we're in, as I tell people, ground zero, right? It's here. The epicenter of tolling is right here because we're first. And other areas of Clackamas County don't see that. And that was pointed out to me yesterday, by the way, by one of our legislators who approached me afterwards and said, I don't hear that much. I just did a town hall out in my part of my district, and I didn't hear that. So people aren't aware of what's going on. So I think indeed, after last evening's input, I think it's perhaps, I won't say incumbent upon us, but I'll just say incumbent. I think it's incumbent upon us maybe to talk to our communities that are going to be impacted by this, because not only is it Clackamas County residents, but it's everyone who passes through this region. And what's coming here is going to be extended throughout the state. And that's why I want to talk to our colleagues at AOC around the state and make sure they're aware of what's coming. So the inconsistencies with the messaging and the inconsistencies with responses to our questions from ODOT is very troublesome. Took a lot of load off of me when the document was published last week or on the website that we approved yesterday, that 36-page analysis response to the EA. So, because people were asking for details, now they have them. Now they have a tool. So I wanted to share with you that they did not all, but a number of our legislators did attend late yesterday, and we did have a good discussion with them. This morning at JPAC, we talked about results. We talked about their approach, or Metro's approach towards how they're going to deal with safety and climate change and economics and everything else when they're doing their UPWP planning or the RTP, which is an acronym, stands for the Regional Transportation Plan. I talked about metrics. I talked about outcomes. And I say, I really appreciate that, but how are we doing? We have these lofty goals. I'm paraphrasing. I didn't say that exactly, but we have these lofty goals. From what I can see, from my view shed, is that from a public safety standpoint, now the traffic accidents are higher. So here we are pouring millions and millions and millions of dollars. Are the outcomes really representative of our failures, or is the approach incorrect? Why is the number going the wrong way? We talk about equity when we speak to marginalized communities, low-income communities. Well, number one leading cause of homelessness right now in this region is economics. So how are we doing there? We're going the wrong direction. We're throwing the money at it, but we're going the wrong direction. How are we doing on climate change and climate goals? CO2 production output is higher. We had Washington County saying the same thing. So going the wrong direction. So you have all these indicators, and yet their measurement, I don't know if Commissioner Schull was, he sometimes attend those meetings. Were you attending this morning's meeting?
No, I wasn't at JPAC.
Yeah, it's recorded. It's fascinating, but their measurement of our effectiveness is not the outcomes and the metrics, it's how much money we're applying towards it, essentially. The more money we apply to it in the guise of whatever that might be, let's say it's safety, we put in another $150 million for something under the guise of safety, therefore we've done something. But if the outcome goes the wrong way, we're not factoring that. But so that was echoed by some of my colleagues at the JPAC table, so I appreciated that. But I think we need to really answer to the public when we are in this crisis situation, and maybe we're not getting the outcomes that the people expect, especially with their tax dollars. I've been working 7 days a week for several weeks now, between tolling and housing and a number of other things. So next week I'm taking some time off. I had a little bit of a plumbing disaster here about 5 weeks ago. I got it patched, and I'm going to spend next week, I shared it with Chair Smith, I got to spend next week clearing out my basement so I can jackhammer a wall out of my basement to do the final piece. So I may not be here much next week, but I will be paying attention. But it's not a staycation by any means.
It's a workcation.
It's a workcation, yeah. Wow. So I'll do what I can. If there's any kind of emergency, I will be available.
Thank you, and we'll reach out to you. And like my husband, who despises doing plumbing, I don't think anybody likes doing plumbing at all.
My house is 80 years old.
Okay.
I have cast iron plumbing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Commissioners, this Monday, the board visited the Grand Ronde.
Chair Smith.
Mark Stern.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Commissioner Shull, what would you like to say?
thank
Take
you,
your
Chair.
time.
Good morning, residents of Clackamas County. There's a couple of things I want to share with you today. First, I want to, again, thank the Tribal Council of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde for the tour of their facilities on Monday, their housing projects, their health projects, their museum. I'm very impressed with the strong, loving, responsible spirit of the people of the Grand Ronde. And also, they have taken on a huge reclamation and renewal project at the falls on the Willamette River. And if you go to grandronde.org, look at their Tumwata project, previously known as the Blue Heron Project, see what you can do to help them. On transportation, we have a lot of cars in the county that have expired tags, and this is a matter of law and order. We need to look at that and get these updated and re-registered. One of the things that is causing is a problem with the plate readers on our patrol cars that look at every license plate out there. They're looking for cars that are stolen. They're looking for people driving with curtailed licenses, and also looking for cars that are used in crime. And when we have thousands of unregistered tags, it makes it difficult. So get those tags updated and get compliant. Also on tolling, I've heard so much about tolling, but now is a chance for people to make their voices heard. You've heard this morning about ODOT's inadequate environmental assessment on I-205 and what tolling would do to it. So right now, and it's a short fuse, we've talked about this before, but tomorrow, COB ends the window to comment, and your comment will have an impact on potentially what the Federal Highway Administration does when it comes to their response to ODOT's environmental analysis. If you send an email to I-205-TOLL-EA@ODOT.Oregon.gov and put EA comments in the subject line, they will, you can have the opportunity to give ODOT an earful on their environmental assessment. Also, like was mentioned by Mr. Poole, Clackamas.live on Facebook. It's got a lot of information on tolling. VoteBeforeTolls.org is where you can download the IP petition to circulate to get signatures to put voting on the ballot next year. Again, we heard from our new clerk this morning. I want to thank Catherine McMullen and the staff the clerk's office for all their great work for this special election. I received my voter pamphlet yesterday. You all should receive yours today or tomorrow. Please read it and please vote on that 16 May special election. On crime, everybody can help our sheriff's office keep Clackamas County safe. The CCSO has got a website for online crime reporting that's not of an emergency nature. If you go on the website, you can fill in information on a crime you might see or a problem that the sheriff needs to know about. If it's a crime in progress, certainly call 911. And let's see here. Also, on the 27th of April, the district attorney right next to the courthouse at the Liberty Plaza will have a little fair going on to commemorate Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Child Abuse Awareness Month, and Crime Victim Rights Week. So that's 27 April, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., right next to the courthouse. Stop in and say hi. I'd like to thank the RID Patrol from Metro. They're always doing a good job cleaning up trash. They've been, in the last 2 years, to Newell Canyon, right down the road on Highway 213. Many times they've hauled away tons of garbage. And if you have garbage to report, OregonMetro.gov, go on there and make your report. Also, 503-234-3000 is a phone number. And finally, you know, we're getting to be close to the school year almost, another 6 or 7 weeks. And I'd like to send a message to our young students. You are braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. You are more than capable of accomplishing everything that you can imagine. As long as you have determination, persistence, and hard work, anything can be possible. So make the best of the next 7 weeks of school, and then have a good summer. My best wishes to everybody in K through 12 schools in Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Thank you, Commissioners, for tolerating me today. I'm a little bit tired. We have done a lot of work, and I, too, have been working, seems to be around the clock, on the important issues affecting Clackamas County. We visited the Grand Ronde tribe this week, and the Commissioners did it in keeping with good public relations. And I think it's important to understand the culture and some of the programs they're implementing, for instance, housing and health care. Taking care of their people through the revenues from their casino, and they're expanding that. And it's very important to acknowledge them as they're taking on a multi-million project on the mill site. And that one day will be an economic boon, not only to them, but the region as well. Right now, they're mitigating much of the underground storage tanks. They don't know what's there yet. My hat is off to them for taking on that project. They have applied for federal grants and received some for those, and as they continue to make that a very wonderful place. This week, this board considered referring Measure 110 to the Clackamas County voters, asking them in an advisory vote to overturn Measure 110, which decriminalized very dangerous and harmful drugs and has added to the drug addiction of not only Clackamas County, but the state of Oregon. Oregon has become a laughingstock in this nation. We are viewed as the drug capital of the world, kind of like what Commissioner Savas was saying. When you think of Nevada, you think of gambling. When you think of Oregon, you think of illicit and illegal drug use. And so we've got to start someplace, and the legislature needs to listen to this. We had District Attorney John Wentworth come forward, and according to the state's own statistics, they have identified officers, law enforcement has stopped 4,000, I believe 160 people, that's a rough number, with only 38 citations. 38, because the police have stopped doing it because there's nothing they can do. And the piddly amount of money that has come in has done nothing to abate the drug addiction that we see in this state. So that's very important as we move forward as just one of the solutions. Today I have a mayors and chair meeting where every month I invite all the mayors from Clackamas County to join in a joint discussion on what they think is important to Clackamas County, offering up what the county can do to help them realize their goals as well. The last time we met, I offered up our federal lobbyist summit strategies to help the cities earmark federal monies for their projects. And some of them took advantage of it and some didn't. But I said, hey, here's a service available to you. And we had a little how-to education summit on Zoom on how to do that. And I think they were grateful. And I think they had their eyes opened up how to possibly garner some of that money. One of the cities is applying for new sewer and rainwater system in their city because they are at capacity because of the huge growth. Today I'm going to ask them to sign on our 30-page response to ODOT's 2,000-page environmental assessment. And it's very important that they do that, and you can find it online. It's very important because the cities, along with the counties, will gain standing in any further action that we want to take, assuming ODOT ignores our 36-page rebuttal to them. So that's important. We're doing a lot of work for the county. There's a lot of balls juggling. You can see the work on our website, on the meetings, where packets are listed, and then there is usually a YouTube video of the proceedings that happened. Any information you need that's going on in the county, you can find it on our website. Just keep looking. It's there. There's a lot there. So thank you all for coming today. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.